Okay, good morning. So thanks for coming to today's networking breakfast and panel. How do I begin a career in HR? Sorry, let me first introduce myself. So I'm Nick Baden. I'm the CEO of CPHR Nova Scotia. And I'd like to talk about CPHR Nova Scotia just for a slight second. It's not a sales pitch, but most of our events are filled with members. So we are a member-based association. And this is by far and away the largest ratio of non-members we've ever had in one room. So I just, of course, I just want to do a quick little intro of CPHR Nova Scotia. So we are the HR professional association for the province. We govern and regulate the designation in this province. There is a national body that we belong to voluntarily, and we work together collaboratively across the nation. And I think the thing that we're most famous for is the designation, and for good reason. It is the gold standard of HR designations in the country. There's nothing else like it. We've got one designation. There's no confusion. That one designation is the gold standard. So if you have the designation, you have been vetted through a very rigorous process. You've established that you have a certain level of academia, a certain level of experience, and that your behaviors are consistent with what we'd expect and aligned with our code of ethics and professional expectations. No question in my mind, and I'm sure the panelists will agree with me, that the designation on your resume speaks volumes about how skilled you are and how confident you are. And when you walk into a room, it's no different than a doctor. If you've been to a doctor's appointment recently, you probably walked in there and you didn't say, "Can I see your qualifications?" I want to make sure when you say you're a doctor, that you are a doctor. The designation does the same thing. You walk into a boardroom, you are a chartered member, and the room respects that. They understand. You know what you're talking about. There's a lot of people that are in HR and they can't get the designation. The designation does more than just say that you're competent. It also says you're well-rounded. So we've got headhunters who consider themselves HR professionals, and they are fantastic at what they do. But we can't have them walk into that room and say, "I'm an HR professional," because they know one thing and they know it really well. They're probably very skilled at that one thing, but they don't have a wide enough gamut to consider themselves a chartered member. And so that is just another layer of what that designation does when you walk into a room. You have it on your resume. And of course, we also do training. So we offer training opportunities like the one you're at today. Either free, typically at a very low price, especially for members, and that helps our members continuously develop. As you probably have seen the world change dramatically in the last 3 years, so does the HR world as we quickly keep up with these seem to be never-ending upheavals. So, all right. So we're going to get on to the panel now. So we are absolutely thrilled to welcome our 4 panelists here on the stage. And first we have Amber MacRoberts, third-year student at Mount Saint Vincent University. She's also a campus ambassador for the CPHR as a volunteer, so we appreciate that. Next we have Susan Thompson Graham, head instructor for the graduate certificate in human resource management at the NSCC. And then next we have Kelsey Baker, CPHR, human resource generalist at Halifax Port Authority. Also our last year's Rising Star Award winner, which is another thing that the association does, awards. And then last but not least, Melanie Wells, CPHR, Director of HR at the Great Canadian Gaming Corporation. I'll start asking some questions, but I would love some questions from the audience. We've drafted some questions together, hoping to extract the information that I think you'd be most interested in, but again, amazing talent here, so please, from the audience, any questions you may have. I'll break the ice, and then I'll look to the audience every once in a while. But I do want to point one other thing out, that you have a lot in common with the panelists. There was a point where they were starting to, and they asked the same question: how do I begin a career in HR? Right, just what you're about to endeavor into, they've done it. And so you can learn from their successes, their failures, we're going to have tips and tricks for the rest of the afternoon, or morning.
How long are we going to be here for?
All right, so I'll kick it off with the first question. I'm going to start with you, Kelsey. I think I misspelled your name here. What were some of the challenges you faced when starting a career in HR?
Yes, so I just building off of what Melanie had actually said in her introduction, even 7 years ago, I don't think we've ever seen a job market like it is today. So my experience may actually be a little bit different, which is actually a really great thing for you. So when I graduated SMU, I actually did not know if I was going to end up in HR or not. I knew that I had kind of this certificate, but I also had a degree in finance, so I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go. So I actually say that HR kind of found me after 3 months of kind of applying to everything that I saw come up, countless resumes that I'm sure you guys are preparing now. I actually had, through a connection, I actually ended up at the Halifax Port Authority. One of the things that I hear our challenges are, I'm not really sure what area of HR I want to go into, which is okay because for me, I went in as an HR assistant, which means that I got exposure to all parts of the business. So you learn from kind of the bottom up, as Melanie was saying, and I think that's very important. So once you're in that role, moving up to more of a coordinator or, specializing in different things, you have time to do all of those things and figure out what you really want to do. So don't be afraid, I guess, to, start near the bottom and kind of build your way up because you're going to get a really great foundation. And then you're going to find ways that you can actually specialize. I know for me, it's taken me about 7 years. I can tell you right now, I do not want to do recruitment full time. That's the one thing that I know right now. And then you're going to find other ways that you want to get in there. The other thing I will say is, really building those connections and kind of getting your foot in the door. I know that I was very guilty of just applying to all the jobs that came up. But for me, looking at it from the other side, I really appreciate when candidates who are applying actually put effort into actually researching the organization. Where do you see yourself? Do my values actually align with this organization? And where do I see myself in this? If we post a role on LinkedIn and somebody applies within 3 seconds, there's probably not much thought kind of going into that. So don't get resume fatigue, I guess is what I'm going to say, and really try to target to what you think you're going to be happy in. So in terms of challenges, Nick, I guess that's what I would say, but also some strategies to kind of avoid some of those things.
Mm-hmm. Any follow-up questions from the audience? That was a great answer, great insights. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. One of the mistakes that I started from the beginning and after that to develop, I'm wondering if there are some functions in HR.
You really projected well, and I'm sure the audience heard you fully, but just for the purposes of the cameras, I'm going to repeat the question. So I'm going to summarize. Hopefully I get this right. But of the many functions in HR, I've lost my train of thought. The functions of many HR, is there any that are more difficult to get into? No? Sorry.
Or there's nowhere for development, right?
There's nowhere, right. Okay, there's nowhere for growth and development in any particular functions.
So I guess for me, I would say everyone needs to start somewhere. I feel like recruitment is very large right now. I think that, you can get into recruitment and then kind of move around as you gain that experience. Sometimes getting your foot in the door and actually having some experience on the resume, I feel really opens the doors to doing other things. I wouldn't say it's necessarily career limiting, but there may... As far as I'm concerned, no, but other people may have opinions.
I was going to add that I don't think that there's anything that's career limiting or there's no room for development, because even if you're in recruiting for a long time, you can always take it in a strategic direction, and then you're adding HR planning, succession planning, retention strategies, so that leads you to compensation. So the nice thing about HR is that all of the functional areas are so interwoven that I think even if you're in one area for a long time, that still has offshoots that you can take in another direction. Go laterally, go up, go laterally, go up. You can certainly do it that way. That's kind of my experience.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is you can always put your hand up, right? So if you do get into a role that is a little bit niche, you can always find opportunities to put your hand up for other things. So it's all about building your resume. I know when we have at the casino, we usually have a team of 3, And I always sort of recognize when I hire people that are sort of up and comers and they're really, they really want to move in their career, unless I kick off, do you know what I mean? There's going to be a natural stopping point for the progression, or people don't want to be mobile. So it's also understanding it's okay to be in a role for a couple of years, get some good experience. And as an employer, I recognize that. And I encourage people, if there's nowhere to grow and move with us, I will fully endorse and support you, to move to another role. So it's just all about building your resume, building your portfolio, building your experience.
I like metaphors, and I think everyone's heard of the term career ladder. And just as Susan's hands were weaving as she was describing it reminded me of there's a term that a lot of HR professionals will use now to get people out of that one-track mind.
Yeah.
And it's career ladders instead of ladder. So you sort of zigzag your way through. And sometimes it means you even step out of the HR function fully and completely. You go to finance and you pick up some new skill sets there, and you come back and you're that much more valuable to your department. Great. Okay. Susan, I'm going to go back to you.
Okay.
Sorry, not back to you, but I was just talking about you. Sell me
Oh,
on a career in HR.
okay. I've been doing that for a long
I'm
time.
assuming is it fair to say there's people in the room not locked into HR?
And that's okay. That's totally cool if you're not locked into HR, because I always say when I start my year, I really kind of, I have a few students from this year in the room, and they'll say that I'm very honest about what you're going to be facing in HR. And I originally got into HR because I was really interested in employment law, and that's still one of my passions. But I think once you get into HR, I can honestly say I have never in 35 plus years had a day that was boring, ever, not ever. There's so much variety in HR. I mean, there's days you want to.
We can call it that. We can call it that. Variety.
There's definitely days you want to tear your hair out, but there's so much to do, and especially if you go with a generalist exposure. And again, that's kind of what I always encourage people to do, is a generalist exposure, because you're going to be in compensation and labor relations, in training and diversity and inclusion. You're going to have so much going on that you're never going to be bored. But the one thing that really drew me to the profession is what I call your role as ombudsperson. I really feel like you're the ombudsperson for the organization. I feel that you're the arbiter of rational, reasonable, fairness, best use of resources, best planning. I really feel that that's what has drawn me to and kept me in this field, because I really feel that that's your role. You're not, as many people would say, management's mole. No, you're not. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're also not, unfortunately, best friend of the employees. You're in that ombudsperson role, and you really have to be that arbiter of reasonableness and the right course and plan within the organization. So if you like variety, and if you like balance, reasonableness, and fairness and logic, ooh, who doesn't like all those? That's like, why wouldn't you want a career in HR, I guess is my question. And then the third reason would be right now, the increase in HR roles has been almost 300% in the last 3 years. And so there's never been a better time to get into this field than right now. But again, it does have to be what you want. And going into it, understanding that if, and the other thing is I chose personally myself to work in large organizations because I just liked the hustle bustle of large organizations. You need to think about the culture that fits you as well. But variety, ombudsperson. There, did I sell it, Nick?
Yes, I'm definitely sold. But, it's funny, as you were talking, what I was also thinking about as you're describing that is the benefits to an organization, how amazing it is to have an HR team, HR professionals. And I thought, I wondered if you could if you could imagine a workplace that doesn't have an HR department, doesn't have the benefits of all that you described.
Yeah. I have a saying that I often say in class, either do it wrong or don't do it at all, you'll get similar results, kind of thing. So I think, when you look at the ability for organizations to thrive today, especially if you look at the big companies, successful Fortune 500 companies, they have something in common, and that's strong HR competencies within their workforce, right? They have diversity and inclusion. They have compensation strategies that retain their workers. They have, and knowing your workers as an HR professional, you need to know all your workers, and you need to know what they do. You cannot sit in an office and not be seeing your folks on a regular basis. You need to be dropping in, having sessions, communicating with them. But I think if you look at workplaces that are successful, it's because they have strong communication, strong succession plans, good HR planning, strong strategic compensation, good performance management, all those pieces are in place. And those are the organizations that are thriving and surviving. The ones that survived the pandemic the best are those organizations.
And it seems so obvious that it's like now more than ever, but you have to ask yourself, is that only going to increase over time?
I think it is.
That's the trajectory of the importance. And I don't see it slowing down or reversing.
I don't at all. Finally, it took a pandemic.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Backed up by the amazing skills that we bring.
Right. Yeah. Those two.
All right. Amber, I'm going to turn to you. I think you bring a unique perspective. So, as you heard in Amber's introduction, she's not working in HR right now. She's preparing. I think she's got a very bright future ahead of her. And I look at the other panelists, and myself included, we're in it. And so I think our perspective is a bit skewed because we're in it. You haven't entered in it. So I believe you might have a further future view, if you will. So I'm wondering, what do you think an HR career looks like in the future?
That's very exciting because HR is changing so much. And I know in 10 years, or even when I get into it, it can look completely different from what it looks like now. Automation, AI, data processing, technology, it's all happening so fast, and it's affecting everything we do in HR, from recruitment, compensation, and training. And it's really important because it can not take away the things that are important that an HR professional is doing, but it helps them focus on another part. And it's insane to me how fast it can change. So it's really interesting and very important for us to understand how we can adapt to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For me, it's kind of scary. I look at all of the various functions within organizations, and IT, of course, has rapid change. Finance, I don't think has changed that much, but HR is like, it's just crazy with the social justice movements and the upheaval of the pandemic. I don't know. I'm glad you've got an eye on it because I can't see it. My head's in the sand right now. Any questions from the audience? Yes, absolutely.
Hi, Sean.
So the question was, the pandemic hit us, and then to the panel, what did you do to confront this challenge with a focus on mental health?
Yeah, it was definitely very difficult. I would say where I work at the casino, it's very challenging to provide flexible work arrangements because you need to be at a table game to deal at table games to our guests. I would say the first thing we did, when we reopened after the pandemic, is we were just sure to be out in front of people. We did robust reorientation sessions in which we provided mental health resources, like a myriad of different resources to people. And I think it's about staying plugged in and keeping a pulse on it. We also sort of implemented different apps that people could use through our Employee Family and Assistance Program. And we just obviously promote the heck out of our Employee Family and Assistance Program and just try to plug people into those resources. But I would say, sort of going back to Susan's point, you have to stay connected to your people. You have to be having those daily conversations because, again, if you just kind of stick in your office, you're not really quite understanding the impact. And I can say firsthand, I would say before the pandemic, we were seeing an increase in mental health in the workplace and just, people sort of bringing that into the workplace. And certainly with the pandemic, I'm seeing that more. So I would say it's about providing resources and staying plugged in are the two most important pieces that we've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just would add to that, not from I obviously wasn't an employer, but an educator. Again, I think NSCC did a great job in terms of having resources available and that sort of thing for students and for employees. But I think, in terms of keeping attached and knowing what's going on, burnout was a huge issue. And I'd often I'm looking at my two grads over there, but you have to be aware of signs of burnout from people. I felt it. I taught online for 2 years and was doing 12-hour days every one of those years. So you have to, and I'd see in my students someday, I'd go, you're not talking today, you're not kind of with me, like what's going on, and taking that time to kind of check in, I think makes a big difference. I think there's a question over there, Nick.
Yes. Yep. Thanks.
My name is Kevin Ferguson. I guess this would be a question for what kind of advice would you give
So the question was about anyone that's transitioning from a non-HR function into HR.
Listen, I always say, and there was another question where I was going to make this point, but I'll make it now. I think that there's a lot to be said for transferable skills. I fully believe in that. I would say, when I was a young person, yesterday, starting my career, it was difficult to find a human resources position. I was a server at the time, and so I had to, at the time, think a little bit creatively about how I was going to get the skills for an employer to consider me for a human resources role. So at the time, servers make pretty good tips, but I took a pay cut to take a food and beverage supervisor position because I knew I would get some of those raw HR skills, like recruiting, performance management. And I find that people who have those skills are actually very valuable to the business. Mm-hmm. And I'm 110% behind that because when I hired an advisor last year, I brought somebody in that actually didn't have a specific HR experience role on the resume, but she had years of experience managing a Sobeys. And she was able to come into our organization and really relate to our managers and really understand the grind, the challenges, and the pressures that they were under. Mm-hmm. So I would say there was a lot to say about transferable skills. So I guess my advice would be really promote those transferable skills, when you're going out into the market. And one thing I do see there's a bit of a lost art around is the cover letter. And that is your opportunity to sell those transferable skills. And I find these days I'm just getting more so resumes. And I don't know if it's old school. Maybe you guys can tell me, but
It's not.
Yeah, I like a good cover letter. I want you to connect the dots for me. I want you to express your enthusiasm for the role, and I find it's getting a bit lesser that you're getting cover letters.
I agree with what Melanie is saying, and I think too, I could say to you that I've had several students over the years that have transitioned from a career, and I think in particular of one gentleman who had been with Zellers for many years. Remember Zellers as a manager, and then Target came in, and where did Target go? I don't know. But he was very worried about taking this next step in his career, and we kind of talked about all of the skills and all of the things that he had that came from those years and years of managing. I've had people come this year. I had someone who was a massage therapist for many years. I've had people who were social workers for many years. Again, all of those skills you bring from those professions ease that change into the new profession. He's now the director of the bookstore at St. Mary's, that particular person, because when St. Mary's contacted me and said, this is the role we have, who do you have? He immediately came to mind. And I said, he's the person for this because he had all of that Zellers experience, right? So I think, and I'm not sure sort of what you're thinking about in terms of transitioning from one career to another. The other great thing is we have a labor shortage. So no matter where you're coming from, how old you are, any of those things that used to matter, they don't anymore. So, we definitely will try to find those competencies wherever they are necessary. Does that kind of answer your question?
I would say, too, I'm over 16 years, and I still run into situations that I've not run into, and I need to figure it out.
Yep.
And that's 16 plus years in. So you're always learning and growing in this.
In those 16 years, do you ever go back to your old textbooks? Do you open them up?
All the time. I think I actually just finally purged them. I thought, I'm not going to refer to these. I feel they've been updated since then, too.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to switch gears for a second. I'll come back to the audience. There's a couple questions I want to get out. So we had a networking portion this morning, and hopefully you got to know a little bit about your table mates. And I just wanted to throw it over to Amber to hear if she had any advice, because it can be a scary thing, networking, but unknown. What do you talk about, the weather? And I wonder if you had any tricks to offer to break through that fear factor.
Yeah, so networking is terrifying for me too. Don't love it, but it comes naturally when you know what to do and you're getting involved in events and you're making small talk and you're just taking steps, one step at a time. And when people think of networking, they think of talking to someone at a company that they want to work for and talking to someone like a CEO or manager and not knowing what to say. But it's more than that. It's much smaller than that. But what I always do, I find a friend or seek someone out who I know there, bring someone. This morning, I sat with Kelsey. I didn't know anyone, so we started from there, and we had a great chat at that table. Another thing you can do is keep in contact with people you meet post-secondary. Get to know your professors. Keep in touch with your professors. It'll help so much. I'm here because I talked to one of my professors, and I was never used to doing that, and that's huge. It'll help a lot.
I wonder, I'm going to go back to you, Amber. I don't know if you have any advice or tips about the accreditation process. We find, I'm going to share a myth. A lot of our students believe that once they graduate, that's it. They've got the designation. And I wonder if you could respond to that.
Yeah, so that's definitely not true. So once you graduate, you need to apply for the candidate status. You need to become a CPHR member at first. So that's your first step. Become a member right now if you aren't already. It's very helpful. They have great mentorship programs, and it's helping me so much already. You need to apply for the NKE waiver, the exam waiver, pay the fee. You need to request an official transcript be sent from your institution to CPHR, and then you can get your experience.
Perfect. Thank you. That's helpful. What's the most important thing you should learn or aspire to when you're in a co-op program?
I'll talk from the teaching perspective, and then you both maybe from the student. I always say to my students to make yourself indispensable at the internship co-op, whatever you want to call it, and to always be asking to participate. Ask to participate in meetings. Ask to participate in training sessions. Ask to participate in daily work that's going on. So make yourself indispensable. Meet everyone you can possibly meet at your work term, co-op, internship. And then ask for more work every day, ask for more to do. I think sitting back, I've had, over the years, a few students call me, oh, I don't like my internship, it's not going well, I'm just not doing anything. And I'm like, well, what have you done? What have you done to kind of make yourself known in the workplace? That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would add to that because sometimes you can get busy as somebody, you've got your own role to do, and though sometimes it's difficult to try to carve out work and find things for an intern to do. So, I said at the beginning, it's about putting your hand up, and I would agree with Susan and sort of echo the fact of just trying to meet as many people as you can and just try to get as much exposure as you can to as many different functional areas, because in the end that will benefit you when you do go to look for a permanent position.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask one last question, and then it's totally from the audience, from there on out. And I think I'm going to you, Melanie, if that's okay.
It's fine.
I wonder if the designation, I did a little bit of an intro at the beginning.
You did, yeah.
I did, and I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe the benefits of the designation.
I feel I might echo.
There's benefits.
I feel I might echo some of your points, but certainly as a proud CPHR holder, I would say obviously the designation really demonstrates a commitment to the profession and really is, as you said, a testimony to just how competent, professional, and capable you are as a human resource professional. I would say a little tongue-in-cheek, we're kind of a big deal. That's really because it's not, as we've already made the point, you don't just go and get your CPHR designation. You don't just apply and get that designation. There has to be a validation of your educational experience. There has to be a validation of your experience. And then that's all cemented by the code of ethics. And I cannot express enough how paramount and how important integrity and ethics is to us as HR professionals. Like without that, you are an island. Like you must have those core values. And really this designation really showcases and really illustrates the importance of that very important cornerstone. And the only other thing I guess I would add is I do believe there's research that shows the WIFM that there is greater earning potential when you do have that designation as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions from the audience? Yes.
One question about designation. So, as far as our job is, but do you say that we have to have some experience before applying for a CPHR designation?
Yeah, so there is experience you do need to have in different competency areas. And so it's 3 years, I believe, is the sort of standard. And that is vetted through a committee who would review your experience and basically score or sort of mark how you would meet up to what those requirements are. So there's the education, the experience, and then there's the code of ethics piece.
And within that experience, there's a new thing now where we acknowledge now that foundational experience is valuable. And so you can include up to a maximum of 1 year of foundational. So that's like your junior level work. So, maybe scheduling interviews. But when you get into the applied HR level, that we need at least 2 years of that, of the 3. Mm-hmm. more questions, please. Yes, in the back.
Yeah, my question is for any of the panel members. Just changing the question, why do you begin a career in HR, or how do you begin a career in HR? My question is why? Like, what energizes you guys to do what you do? Obviously, there's a passion and love, but what is your why?
I think that I love that question. I'm actually going to piggyback it and ask everyone to answer that question. So maybe we could work our way down. Melanie, if you want to go first. Why?
What is my why? Oh my God, you're blowing my mind. My why, I think, is just like, as I said, I'm 16 plus years in and I'm still learning. So it's not like a role that you get into and you're stuck and you think, oh, I'm toiling at the same thing day in and day out. I remember when I was in second year university and I had a prof say, oh, you're really good at accounting, you should go into accounting. And I thought, oh God, like I just couldn't do that same sort of day in, day out. So I think the why is that I'm continually challenged, that, you know, I do enjoy working with people, even though we jokingly say you can't go into this because you love people, but I am, you know, sort of a social person. So I do enjoy that aspect. And I do enjoy the fact that every day literally is a different day. I guess would sort of be my elevator pitch on the why.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's very similar. Never a dull moment. You are never going to be bored. I always tell people. I think the other thing is that it's a unique space within an organization. So you're going to be dealing with management. You're going to be dealing with kind of the decision makers within an organization, but you're also really going to get to know the employees on kind of a more intimate level. So we have some employees say in accounting that's like, oh, who is this person? And I'm like, well, this, you know, they were hired 6 months ago. So you really get to know people on, you know, from all angles. And one of the things that I really like is helping people to kind of grow or be their best, right? So I know that if somebody comes to me with a benefits question, I can either answer that question or I know where to go to get that question answered. So I feel like it's a very helpful role that you can actually, you know, be that trusted advisor for other people.
I'm going to go probably to the place of what I enjoy doing in HR, and that's if you're a person who likes puzzles. Any of you like puzzles? Nobody? Okay, not for you then.
Only during the pandemic.
Yeah. For me, I think about the things that you do in HR, and problem solving is a big one, right? I think that problem solving is a lost art. It's a competency that's really important today. Problem solving, figuring out, you know, what's going on, where do I look for the resources, what research do I need, how do I figure out the best alternatives to this problem. Problem solving for me is you know, that kind of that puzzler, you know, getting through that. So that's kind of what I love about HR. And I also love, again, I've talked about the variety and so on, but I love the fact that, and most people don't think of HR this way, but embracing technology and embracing math. Right? Because I think that, you know, I think about myself teaching for the last 2 years online. I taught myself probably 8 new platforms and software, and I'm an old dog, so I taught myself those new tricks. And, you know, and I think about the fact that when you are good at math, and I was really keen to hear that Kelsey was a finance major, because that helps you sell your ideas, because often to your senior management, you're selling it on the basis of finances, right? And so I think about those things, getting to know the people, the variety, and so on. But it's the puzzling through things every day, the problem solving that kind of attracted me.
You shared an awesome tidbit that I just want to double down and make sure everyone walks away with, because I think you're so right. Often HR folks will get into that room and convince everyone to do something, a new policy or change, because it's good for the people. Right? It feels good. It's the right thing to do. Yeah. And even though that may be the case, I think often the case, the decision is based on, you know, there's a financial gain. You know, happy people equals more productive workforce, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Amber.
Yeah, for me, same thing with Melanie. Just anything else in school, it was almost too confined for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do until last year, because everything just seems too kind of black and white, kind of boring. But with HR, it's changing so much, and it's so interesting to me, because when I get into the field, I have no idea what it's going to look like, and I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, but there's so many opportunities within HR that you can't say no to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer too. I'm jealous. This is I love this question. And there's a funny story in it too, which you'll probably judge me on, but that's okay. I'm being vulnerable here, so be prepared. So I was in high school, didn't know what to do, and I was on the verge of graduating, and my friend picked me up one night to go out on I think we were going to a bar or something, and he pulled up in a convertible, and I'd never been in a convertible before. So I get in, and, you know, I didn't have much hair, but it was blowing in the wind. I was like, this is amazing. And of course, it was his dad's car. I'm like, what does your dad do? He's like, he does HR. I'm in. That was my why. That's a really true story. That's how it started. But in all seriousness, I actually discovered my why about 12 years into my career. So I was working for some really cool companies up until that point. And then I worked in insurance. And I loved my previous brands and their products. And then when I got into an insurance company, I really discovered my why. I thought to myself, like, I don't care about insurance. Why am I here? I don't understand. And it really challenged me. And then I discovered my why was about building good workplaces and the creation of employment opportunities for the community. So that became my why as a result of working for what otherwise was a very boring product in business. Yeah, so that's my why. So that concludes today's session. Again, stick around if you have any questions. No one's rushing out of here. You know, no pressure, but if you want to become a member, we'd be happy to have you. I think one of the things that we haven't touched on that the association does well is connecting folks. So you probably connected with people today, and that's certainly something we can do through our mentorship program, through our professional development events that always have a networking component. And so thank you. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.